So we wanted to talk about the model of Crossroads for women, and in order to do that, I have to give you a little history about the organization. The organization was started initially in 1997 under a different name. It was called Human Rights Advocacy, and it was started because there was a civil rights attorney, her name's Elizabeth Simpson, who was doing some civil rights litigation at MDC. And what Lisa was doing at the time was working with inmates on civil rights issues, particularly related to medical and mental health care, and working with them to gain access to appropriate treatments and things that they needed. So while Lisa was in the jail doing this legal work, she noticed a phenomena occurring among inmates, and particularly female inmates, that the women were getting released into the community and in pretty short order were coming back into the jail. You know, they were saying, well, we're getting released, and at that time, although not completely different now, they were getting released into the downtown Albuquerque area in the middle of the night and without any resources, really. So Lisa, with her Harvard law degree, decided that what she wanted to do was start an organization or start something that would attend to the needs of this population. So she went out and did a bunch of research and looked at what at that time were the models, were the best practices, were the theories that were in existence having to deal with effective service provision for formerly incarcerated women, and realized that in order to provide any kind of services to formerly incarcerated women, it wasn't going to be enough to do just one thing, that you really had to be comprehensive and wrap around. She came to understand that for the majority of female offenders, and this is important and something I think that gets overlooked oftentimes, the majority of female offenders have trauma, some pre-existing trauma that preceded whatever it was that landed them in jail. And so Lisa knew that that was going to be a component of the program and knew that doing some kind of trauma-based, trauma-focused work was going to have to be underscoring everything else that happened in the organization. The model is, we call it comprehensive wraparound. Maybe that term is being overutilized, but comprehensive in the sense that we provide housing, we're providing the case management, clinical services, vocational services, family and parenting specialties, a day program that has a lot of different types of group activity going on in it related to recovery and relapse prevention and life skills and again, parenting. And we also build into our work, and when I got to Crossroads I used to say, oh, this place likes to party, because I got there and all of a sudden they were having like a barbecue, and then Halloween is this big deal, and every holiday is this huge ordeal, and I was like, wow, this place just likes to. Well, what I realized, it's an intentional component of the model, and it's intentional because what we know is that when you've been cycling between incarceration and homelessness, and you haven't had an opportunity to really be in a social environment, and you have cognitive impairments, or you have co-occurring disorders, and you haven't been in an environment where people are clean and sober. Clean might not be the right term to use, but abstinent in some way from drugs or alcohol. Relating to people is scary. So we build in this intentional social component, and I call it therapeutic social events, right? Lots of studies have been done now. Back when Lisa was starting the program, it was a lot of theory, but there's been studies done now that we know that well over 80% of inmates in female inmates in correctional systems have trauma as an underlying issue, and we also know that addiction is a cofactor in their lives. The model is based on, it's not one model, it's really an eclectic model built on a lot of different theories and practices that were working in other places but may have been modified and adapted to fit with what we have going on here in New Mexico or Albuquerque specifically. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that Maslow's hierarchy of needs fits very much into what we do, and you'll hear about that in a little bit. We also very much use Prochaska and DiClemente stages of change. So we're very rooted in a harm reduction theory. We have incorporated this idea that change happens in very small incremental steps, and that we don't expect people to go from A to Z without the rest of the alphabet in between, and oftentimes vacillating between alphabet. The program's also built on Lisa Najivit's work, Seeking Safety. Some of you are familiar with that model. Dr. Stephanie Covington, who's done a lot of work on addiction, helping women recover. And I'll just give a plug. We're bringing Stephanie Covington here in October as part of what is turning out to be kind of our ongoing seminar series. So look for registration information for that later. We also looked to SAMHSA, the technical assistance publications, and then mixed all of that in with more harm reduction, motivational interviewing, and other things that really support a trauma-informed approach. The principles that Lisa founded the organization on are the same principles that we try to embrace. The women at Maya's would say we don't try, that we embrace today, and that's that the population could not be served with a Band-Aid, that every aspect of their lives had unraveled. They could not learn to parent without substance abuse treatment. They could not control their addiction while living in a crack house. They could not get or maintain a job without some life skills development, and so on, and that the wraparound services were essential. And the other core principle was that the approach would have to be nurturing, supportive, and respectful. And this was also a product of a deliberate intention to reach those women who had not been served effectively by mainstream service provision. In 2005, the city asked Lisa if she would take over Bridges for Women. She said yes. She named it Maya's Place. She brought Maya Angelou in, said, hey, we named this place after you. Maya gave it a blessing, and it's been Maya's Place ever since. Maya's is a 12 to 15 bed, highly structured congregate living. It's an apartment complex with a shared sidewalk. Most of the women that are there are coming more or less directly out of jail or prison, off the streets, out of substance abuse treatment. We partner a lot with Barrett Foundation because they still have to meet some criteria around homelessness. Anyway, while they're there, they participate in therapeutic programming addressing trauma, mental illness, life skills education, group therapy, vocational training. It's about a 6-month program is how we run it, but people stay longer if they need to. One of the goals is that you don't leave transitional housing until you have some kind of other permanent housing. So that's always a goal. And then the Crossroads is a 25 to 30 scattered site unit housing program. We have units throughout the city. And those women, about half of them are coming out of Maya's Place, transitional housing, into the Crossroads, and the other half are folks that have applied, gotten to find out about us through various vehicles. It could be Renee's project or Barrett Foundation. It could even be Jody. And they fill out an application, and we interview them and see if they fit the criteria that we have. Both programs provide a continuum of care from incarceration to community life. And in both programs, participants are provided comprehensive services that are unparalleled, we like to say, including something called the Day Program, education in jail, and aftercare. And